Hello, everybody. I'm Skip Alzheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks lunchtime streaming show where we watch old 16 millimeter films, and sometimes they are barely animated. And that one was Coil Bowl. So it showed you how to make a coil bowl. So yeah, that's useful, right? You know, sure. Anyways, yeah, we watch a lot of 16 millimeter films here, and we that one came from the um, Academic Film Archive of North America, Jeff Alexander. We scanned that for him some time ago. Here's another one from his collection. This is Berlin, Outpost of Freedom. This is made by the same people who made The Little Tree Who Had a Dream. So, I don't know. Will this one just be a bunch of classical music with footage of Berlin? Let's see. Enjoy.
Today's great ideological conflict has separated the world into two camps. Since the Cold War began, an iron curtain has descended right through the heart of Europe. One country, Germany, has even been divided into two nations. One belongs to the eastern, the other to the western camp. West Germany has built a strong democracy and experienced a great economic rebirth, while East Germany has become another Soviet satellite state. But one Western fortress was placed deeply within the communist territory, Berlin. This city is the only loophole in the Iron Curtain. Free West Berlin belongs politically to the West. But to reach this isolated outpost of freedom, the Western powers have to travel over 100 miles through the hostile and forbidden zone behind the Iron Curtain. Like Germany itself, Berlin has been divided into two parts since the Cold War. In addition, free West Berlin is hermetically sealed off from all its surroundings and completely isolated. A situation like this has never existed before in history. The Iron Curtain holds Berlin tightly in its grip. It has established a border all around West Berlin, and every single street along this border is a dead-end road to nowhere. Street barriers, roadblocks, fences, and barbed wire serve as prison wall for a whole town. No West Berliner is ever allowed to enter East Germany, not even to visit his family. The inhabitants are virtually imprisoned within their part of the city. But the people take all means of communist pressure in stride. The successful resistance they have shown throughout the years has counted greatly in the policies of the great powers. The city itself has been divided into an eastern and a western part. It has two operating municipal governments and two rival currencies. The power, transport, telephone, and sewage system have been split in two. The Iron Curtain has separated over 3 million inhabitants into two hostile camps with policemen and customs officials guarding the city boundaries. This is East Berlin. Compare the desolated streets and the ruins reminding one of chaotic post-war conditions with a busy, happy life in modern West Berlin, and then you know. Berlin is the strategic center of the East-West struggle. As a result of the division, Berlin has lost its importance as a metropolitan city. Because of its favorable location, it had once been Europe's largest railroad junction. It had 8 railway stations with 300 passenger trains going every day to all parts of Europe. Today, only 20 passenger trains during the whole year are leaving West Berlin. Grass and rust still cover the tracks of most of these large railway stations. 20 passenger trains a year for 2.5 million West Berliners. That means that transportation by railway has practically come to a standstill, and a bus station had to be opened for passengers traveling from West Berlin to West Germany. However, the Eastern authorities do not allow any stops at all to be made on the way, and all passengers are searched by the East German police. This can often be a dangerous situation. There is only one safe way to enter West Berlin, and that is by air. Travel by air is the gateway to freedom for the endless stream of refugees who are daily escaping the way of life behind the Iron Curtain. And West Berliners will never forget the airlift. At the outbreak of the Cold War, when Russia stopped all traffic through the East Zone, the Western Allies fed and supplied the isolated people for 11 months by air. This incredible operation made the city a symbol of freedom throughout the world. But transport by air is very expensive, and so the freight has to be shipped by other means. Before the isolation, West Berlin obtained its daily supplies from its immediate surroundings, where all these goods are produced. Today, the waterways fulfill an important function. Every ton of coal and raw materials, every pound of meat and potatoes, everything needed to heat, feed, and clothe the people has to reach the Berlin outpost by the long route along the river barges coming through East Germany. A new job had to be created by this situation, that of the customs official. Now we have the strange case of German customs men checking their own nation's freight. On duty day and night, they have to search every freighter or truck coming through East Germany. This is why West Berlin, removed from world trade, is called an island in the Red Sea. Be it travel by air, railway, bus, or waterways, any border incident may bring about a new international crisis. Berlin remains the most dangerous powder barrel which the slightest spark may ignite. Divided Berlin has two currencies, East and West money. East Berlin has strict rules. Any West Berliner found in their sector with East mark will be charged with currency treason. But West Berlin tries to ease the situation of its less fortunate compatriots. It has opened so-called Wechselstuben, monetary exchange offices. Here, Ernst and Bernd, two young students, can exchange their East money for West money and buy some of the goods which are not available in the East. However, Ernst and Bernd cannot afford to shop often in West Berlin, since the West mark is worth 4 to 5 times as much as the East mark. At the end of the war, Berlin was a vast field of ruins. There was little hope to rebuild this huge area of devastation, and it seemed easier to evacuate the whole town. But Berliners won the first peacetime battle, the Battle of the Rubbish. In the first years after the war, there was no modern machinery available, and they undertook the gigantic task of clearing millions of tons of rubble with their bare hands. Today, they have erected a monument to the rubble women. Thanks to these women, millions of tons of debris were made usable for reconstruction. Slowly, the stricken city began to live again. The need for housing brought about an enormous building activity, and a new, beautiful modern city is arising. But the battle of rubble continued. Mountains and mountains of rubble were left, even after all the recovered bricks were used for reconstruction, and the problem remained what to do with the unusable debris. Where should the isolated West Berliners transport these heaps of brick? The answer was surprisingly simple. They used them to build mountains. Some took 6 to 10 years to finish. But covered with soil, planted with trees, shrubs, and roses, and equipped with modern swimming pools, this was an unusual but ingenious way to beautify the city and to find more recreation spots for the isolated population. Now, each district of Berlin has such a rubber mountain, and the people take pride that their mountain is the most beautiful one in the city. At the same time they were rebuilding and disposing of the rubble, Berliners had to reconstruct their underground networks. During the war, the subway stations were used as bomb shelters, but by the end of the war, they were completely demolished. At present, all transport within the city is also split in two. But plans for reconstructions are carried out so that the subway system will one day again embrace the whole city, east and west. Today, West Berlin is active and alive again. Its recovery despite war damage, the blockade, and its perilous position behind the Iron Curtain is remarkable. The newly rebuilt West Berlin has become a continuous source of embarrassment for communist propaganda. The people are used to all forms of pressure and danger, but they're grateful that they've remained free. And they hope that the Berlin Bear, long familiar on the coat of arms of historic Berlin, will one day again be the symbol of a united, free, cosmopolitan city.
Man, that really sounded like Werner. How do you pronounce his name? Klemperer. Colonel Klink from Hogan's Heroes. Unfortunately, there's no credit, so I don't know that for sure. But it sounded like him. I mean, but you know, middle-aged German immigrant, they might all sound the same. Yeah, so everything kind of worked out. Germany reunited. Capitalism won. Hooray. Speaking of currency, what do they call it? Currency treason? Here's a film about currency treason. Doubtful Dollars. Enjoy.
Okay. We'll pass the stuff in the usual way and meet back here tonight. I'll have the car ready and we'll get out of town. Jim, you cover the cigar stores and restaurants. Joe, you take a bundle of fives and use the kids' angle. Mary, you shop in the corner grocery and drugstore. Pete, you and Grace know how to pass yours.
Hey, Sonny. Run into the store there and get me a pack of cigarettes, and you get a dime. Any kind of cigarettes they have.
Morning.
Good morning.
I'd like a box of crackers and a jar of raspberry jam.
Anything else?
That'll be all.
That'll be 52 cents.
I'm sorry, all I have is a $10 bill.
That'll be all right. I have plenty of change this morning. $52, $55, $65, $75, $1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 5 is 10.
May I see the pins in that tray, please? That one would be lovely on my blue coat. How much is it?
That's $2.65, including tax.
I think I'll take it. Pete from God.
$2.65, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20.
You, the public, are the victims of phony money. And you, the public, can help prevent counterfeiting if you know your money. To stop the flow of counterfeit money that flooded the country in the wake of the Civil War, the United States Treasury Department established its own law enforcement agency known as the Secret Service. Since that time, Secret Service agents operating from field offices throughout the country have been constantly fighting the criminals who make phony money, as well as those who pass it to the public. Frank J. Wilson, Chief of the United States Secret Service, is directing a nationwide campaign to prevent loss through counterfeit money.
Through unceasing investigations, numerous arrests, and severe fines and jail sentences, we've been able to reduce greatly the flow of worthless bills and coins. But punitive measures are not enough. The very fact that we are constantly exposing their tricks makes the criminals seek new methods of counterfeiting and altering United States currency. Consequently, under the direction of Secretary Morgenthau and in cooperation with local police departments, the American Bankers Association, and potential victims of counterfeit money, we are carrying on an intensive program of loss prevention by making money handlers and potential victims counterfeit conscious. This program is based on the theory that when profit is removed from crime, the criminal will abandon his crooked business. And that if everyone, small storekeepers or clerks or bartenders or cashiers and others who are exposed to counterfeit money know what to look for and then examine money when it is presented by strangers, the makers and passers of phony money will be forced out of business. In accepting money, it is well to remember that while not all strangers are counterfeiters, all counterfeiters are strangers. Learn to know your money and train yourself to examine the bills and coins you receive.
All genuine paper currency is printed in Washington by the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. At a glance, counterfeit money looks genuine, but no matter how clever counterfeiters may be, they can never exactly duplicate the fine engraving, printing, and other processes used by our government. The Treasury Department now prints and circulates 3 types of paper currency: United States notes with red seal and numbers, silver certificates with blue seal and numbers, and Federal Reserve notes with green seal and numbers. After the money is printed, it is placed in circulation by member banks of the Federal Reserve Bank. There are 12 Federal Reserve districts throughout the country, each with a number and corresponding letter of the alphabet for its symbol. Each Federal Reserve note bears a regional seal at the left of the portrait on the bill. The seal, printed in black, bears the name of the Federal Reserve Bank issuing the bill and corresponding letter of the Federal Reserve District in which the bank is located. United States notes and silver certificates do not bear the Federal Reserve seal, but this diagram shows the position of the important features on all genuine paper currency: portraits, type of note, Treasury seal, serial number, series, check letter and faceplate number, and the Federal Reserve seal and letter if it is a Federal Reserve note. It is in duplicating one or more of these features that the makers of counterfeit money fail to measure up to the standards of perfection. Bills are sometimes raised to larger denominations, and for that reason, you should be familiar with the pictures of these great men whose portraits are engraved on genuine bills, and you should check the portrait with the denomination of the note on which it appears. Washington on all $1 bills, Jefferson on all 2s, Lincoln on all 5s, Hamilton on all 10s, Jackson on all 20s, Grant on all 50s, and Franklin on all 100s. This is the face of a typical counterfeit bill. On this, as on most bogus bills, there are several telltale defects when you know where to look for them. First, notice the portrait. It is flat, cheap, and unnatural. The eyes are not clear and distinct. The oval background around the head is not clear and even. It is darker than on a genuine bill, and the portrait merges into the black. The fine, screen-like lines in the background are hardly noticeable, and much of the screen is filled with ink. Next, look at the words and numbers. Often, some of the letters and figures are imperfect, blurred or smudged. Now, examine the borders. Here again, the counterfeiter's work is usually poor. The fine lines that cross and recross are not clear-cut. They fade out, break, or often are missing entirely. The Treasury seal is also usually a telltale feature. In most counterfeit bills, The saw teeth around the rim of the seal are blunt, uneven, or broken. These are the outstanding defects for which to look whenever you accept money from a stranger, even without a magnifying glass. One or more of these imperfections can be detected. If you find any of them and suspect the bill to be bogus, compare it with a genuine bill. First, compare the portraits. On a genuine bill, the face stands out distinctly and the eyes appear lifelike. The fine lines on the face and in the oval background are clear and make a fine screen of regular, clear-cut lines. On the counterfeit bill, the eyes are dull. The face is flat, cheap, and unnatural, and it merges with the oval background. The fine lines are broken, irregular, and in places obliterated entirely. The overall background is dark, and in many places the squares of the screen are filled with ink. Next, compare the borders. On genuine bills, the innumerable fishnet fine lines around the figures are clear, distinct, and unbroken. This lacework design, known as geometric lathe work, is practically impossible to duplicate. On counterfeit bills, these fine lines are not clear. They are broken and do not cross and recross as they do in the genuine. Now, look at the Treasury seals on the two notes. On good bills, the saw teeth around the rim are clear and even, and the letters distinct, while on counterfeits, the teeth are blunt, uneven, and some of them missing entirely. In addition to these imperfections, counterfeiters often neglect to print all identifying numbers and letters on the bills, or carelessly print them in the wrong places. Be sure the serial number is printed twice. Once under the word America to the right of the portrait, and again to the left of the portrait near the bottom. And make sure it has a check letter, which is always printed in black, just above and to the left of the large figure. Finally, compare the numbers and words. The figures and letters should be firmly and evenly printed and well spaced. To help you know your money and detect counterfeit bills quickly and easily, warning notices such as this may be obtained without charge simply by sending your name and address to your nearest Secret Service office or to the Chief, United States Secret Service, Treasury Department, Washington 25, D.C. These notices, which are issued periodically, should be kept in convenient but inconspicuous places. They can help you find the imperfections on suspected bills. Train yourself to examine every bill presented by a stranger. When you receive a bill which you suspect, detain the person who presents it with a plausible excuse. Explain that you have insufficient change but will get it. Prearrange a definite signal with your associates. For example, you can deliberately turn the bill over when...
And then I'm sure the telecine just gave out. Yeah, so why was that film all warbly, and why was it moving in the gate? Why was part of it out of focus? As some of you noted in the comments, that's because of Vinegar syndrome. So basically film that is printed on acetate, which is the clear base, over a period of time can develop vinegar syndrome, where it starts to off-gas acetic acid, and if it's not properly vented or dealt with, then basically it creates this chain reaction to where it just keeps building up and building up and building up and causing more vinegar syndrome. And so what happens is the base becomes less flexible and begins to shrink. So what happens is your perf holes get smaller. And so if you have a machine that is registering perfs, like this machine, then it started to roll because it didn't quite know where the frame was anymore. There are better scanners now that know how to deal with this, and we have one that has a warp gate. So it's actually pushing the film flat, because that's another thing that can happen with vinegar syndrome, is that the film begins to shrink and curl, so it doesn't lie flat. in the gate. So that's why you have that, some part of the film is out of focus. So this helps push it down, and then it uses a computer to figure out where the perf holes are to register. And we have much better luck with stuff like that. Unfortunately, by the time we get this scanner, this film was scanned probably 30 years ago, digitized 30 years ago, and so it is probably gone. It is completely deteriorated to the point where it can't run without falling apart. And that is the last problem with vinegar syndrome, is that eventually what happens is it becomes so curled and so shrunken that when you try to make it lie flat, then it cracks and falls apart. Or it becomes what we call a hockey puck, where it all just sticks together on one reel, and if you try to pull it apart, then it just falls into fragments. So that is what happens. Gasoline for everybody. Enjoy.
Gasoline. Powerful stuff. Modern magic. Our lives, our business, our cities are patterned on motor transportation which gasoline has made possible. Do you realize what gasoline means to this country? It has added a new freedom to our lives. The freedom of movement, of individual transportation, anywhere, anytime, for everybody in America. And those who make and sell gasoline perform a service, not only to their communities, but to the whole country. But most people just don't realize how much hard work, knowledge, and money it takes before gasoline can come out of a pump and into the tank of an automobile. First, there is the search to find the crude oil that's needed to make gasoline, and that takes plenty of study and special training. They send out crews to make surveys of territories that seem promising, just like prospecting for gold in the old days. Only these men are scientists. They sink test holes and use super-sensitive instruments to find out what the Earth is like far below the surface. If the experts decide the results show the possibility of oil, they are ready for the next step. Usually, they first drill a hole to get actual samples of the Earth itself, cores that show exactly what the Earth is like at different levels. The oil engineers can tell if these samples come from a place that contains crude oil, how good it is, and how much there is. Then another big, tough, expensive job gets underway. Clearing the land for drilling, maybe even building roads through wild, rough country. Oil drilling goes on all the time. Thousands of new wells are drilled every year. And because of the scientific way they go about it today, over half of these new wells deliver oil. Next, there's the job of getting this crude oil from the wells to the refineries. A lot of it travels through pipes, thousands of miles of pipes. Some pipelines extend halfway across the country. And plenty of crude oil is carried in tankers. They also transport finished gasoline to every part of the world. These tankers form one of the biggest merchant fleets we have. And the railroads. They carry oil from the gathering tanks to the refineries, and then gasoline from the refineries to distribution points all over America. The process of refining crude oil into gasoline and other products is another big part of a big industry. It takes millions and millions of dollars worth of equipment to turn out finished petroleum products. It's a complicated process, but not at all difficult to understand when you realize that every drop of crude oil is a mixture of many small particles or molecules. They're called hydrocarbons because they are compounds containing only hydrogen and carbon. The molecules vary in relative size and weight. The large heavy molecules are found in the heavier oils, the fuel oils, lubricating oils, tar, asphalt, and so on. In what you might call the medium sizes, you find smaller and lighter molecules. And these are what are used for gasoline and kerosene and similar products. The very small and very light molecules are the natural gases. As it comes from the well, the crude oil contains molecules of all sizes. The first step is to separate them. The crude oil is heated in a furnace, and the hot oil is pumped into a fractionating tower. The proper temperature is maintained in the tower by recirculating part of the oil through the furnace. The heavy molecules in liquid form concentrate at the bottom of the tower and are drawn off for use as heavy oils. The lighter molecules vaporize, and with the natural gases, move to the top of the column. This mixture of gases and oil vapors flows into a condenser. The vapors condense into liquid gasoline. The next step is to separate the gases from the gasoline. This is done in a second fractionating tower. The gases move to the top of the tower and are drawn off. The liquid gasoline concentrates at the bottom of the tower. This is what we call straight-run gasoline. In the early days of the automobile, this straight run was the only kind of gasoline we had. But as public demand increased, new ways had to be found to get more gasoline from a given amount of crude oil. So the oil industry developed what is called the thermal cracking process. Certain of the larger molecules of heavy oil are literally cracked into smaller molecules in or near the gasoline range. In the fractionating tower, the oil molecules tend to collect at various levels according to their size. That's why they call it a fractionating tower. The molecules collect in groups or fractions. This makes it easy to take off the group of medium weight molecules that are best suited for use as cracking stock. These molecules are piped to a thermal cracking furnace, where by heat and pressure, they are cracked into smaller molecules. At the same time, a lot of other things happen to the chemical structure of the molecules, and a kind of synthetic crude oil results, with molecules of all sizes, but almost half of them are in the gasoline range. This goes into a flash tower where the smaller molecules vaporize. Those that are too heavy are drawn off and used as asphalt, coke, tar, and so on. The lighter molecules move to the top of the tower and then to a condenser, where they again become liquid. To separate them, they go to another fractionating tower. The heavier oil collects at the bottom and is drawn off as cracked fuel oil. The lighter molecules move toward the top, condense, and are taken off at their proper level as thermally cracked gasoline. The gases formed during the cracking process move to the extreme top of the tower and are piped off. Also, to obtain more gasoline, some of the cracked fuel oil is piped back to the thermal cracking furnace and goes through a second cracking process, again increasing the amount of gasoline obtained from a given quantity of crude oil. In recent years, the industry has tremendously expanded a comparatively new cracking process called catalytic cracking. A catalyst is a substance which causes a desired reaction to take place without being affected itself. In cracking gasoline, the catalyst is in the form of beads or a fine powder-like material. In this process, heavier molecules of oil below the gasoline range are piped into a furnace and heated. The hot oil vapors then go into the catalyst tower, where they contact the catalyst. This not only cracks the molecules down to smaller size, but changes their chemical structure to make them suitable for gasoline. These smaller molecules then go to a condenser, where they become liquid, and then to a fractionating tower. Again, the liquid that is too heavy for gasoline collects at the bottom and is drawn off as cracked fuel oil. gasoline is drawn off at its proper level, and this is what we call catalytically cracked gasoline. In many operations, even more gasoline is obtained by sending some of the catalytically cracked fuel oil into the thermal cracking process. The gases, as usual, collect at the top and are piped off. In every process, gases have been produced. These used to be burned away as waste or used as gas. But to conserve our natural resources and to obtain the largest possible amount of gasoline from the crude oil, the oil industry discovered how to make gasoline from some of these gases too, by a process of polymerization. This is just the reverse of cracking. Polymerization simply means combining very small molecules to form larger molecules. So the smaller molecules that are lighter than gasoline are combined into larger molecules from which gasoline can be made. The gas is piped into a furnace and heated. The hot gas goes to a catalyst tower. By contact with a suitable catalyst, usually phosphoric acid, a chemical reaction occurs which causes the molecules to unite and form larger molecules. These larger molecules go into a fractionating tower. Those in the gasoline range condense to liquid, and this is drawn off as polymer gasoline. Those that are still too light are drawn off the top as fuel gas. So we have four main types of gasoline refining processes. Straight run, in which gasoline is vaporized from crude oil by simple heating. Thermal cracking, in which heat and pressure are used to split heavy oil molecules into smaller molecules suitable for gasoline. Catalytic cracking, in which a catalyst is used to split heavier oil molecules. And the polymer process, in which small gas molecules are combined to form larger molecules and condensed to liquid. Certain of these processes produce gasolines of superior anti-knock quality. Gasolines from other processes can be stepped up by blending with materials such as alkylate or benzol. Most refiners, however, find it advantageous to add ethyl brand of anti-knock compound to their gasolines. It ensures high anti-knock quality for their entire output. For more than 20 years, ethyl brand of anti-knock compound has helped the petroleum industry to bring out better and better gasoline. And during these past years, you have seen what better gasoline has meant in producing better automobiles with engines that give increasingly better power and better performance. This progress is the result of the constant endeavor of the oil and automotive companies to fit engines to fuels and fuels to engines, an endeavor in which ethyl research engineers, today as in years past, are working in close cooperation with both industries. And as our progressive American oil industry, with research and engineering,
I did not mean to do that. My finger slipped. I don't know how much was left on that. Crap. I'm sorry. I don't exactly know what happened there. How that, because I didn't. It's very frustrating. Anyways, you got the gist of that film. And I was going to basically bring this up. This gentleman, Thomas Midgley Jr., who helped innovate the concept of leaded gasoline, or anti-knock gasoline. And he basically helped contribute to the leadification of our environment. Basically lead, which was very specific places in our environment, then became everywhere, especially in urban settings. And that negatively impacted people, lowered IQs, caused insanity. Even himself, when he was testing this, he downplayed the effects of lead, but went on vacation because he was suffering from lead poisoning in developing this process. The other thing that he helped create and popularized, I'm having problems today, too much lead, was Freon. And so he also created something, helped lead to the CFC industry, which destroyed the ozone layer. Mostly destroyed it, but thankfully that's come back. But anyways, that guy, holy cow. So much stuff. All right. I'm sorry about that. I don't normally do that, and it would be hard for me to get back to figure out where we left off. But you get the point. Basically, ethyl in their anti-knock gasoline. The problem was that cars were not running smoothly, and so that they were hard to start, and they were hard to keep running. And they realized, like, oh, if we add something like lead, then that helps lubricate things and helps make things run better, which is great for cars running better, but it was horrible for everybody else. Okay, so this next film is another technological advance that could potentially have destroyed civilization. That is the dial telephone. Enjoy.
Charlie, what's new today?
Oh, same old thing, I guess. Here's a paper if you want it, Dad.
Good. I was wondering where that doggone kid was.
Where's Mom, Jeannie?
Starting supper. I'm going to help her as soon as I finish this algebra problem.
Oh, Jenny, you know what it says here? They're going to take out all our phones and put in them kind with dials on them.
Oh, Gramps, that's yummy. Does it say how soon?
A few weeks, I guess.
That'd be just super.
Oh, pshaw.
What'd you say, Gramps?
I said, oh, pshaw. As soon as a man gets used to one thing, by golly, somebody wants to take it away from him.
But, Gramps, we've had that old phone since, well, I bet since Daddy was a boy. We ought to be glad to have modern telephones.
Oh, shucks. You young'uns are never satisfied these days. Folks are getting more worried about being modern than they are over the 3 square meals. I'm going to call up Ed Hochstetter and find out what he thinks about all this business. Give me 344J. Thank you kindly.
Don't talk too long, Gramps. Supper will be ready in a few minutes.
Never missed a meal yet. Ain't gonna start now.
All right.
Hello, Ed? I say, is this Ed Hochstetter talking? Huh? Well, get along close to your phone. Ain't gonna bite you, Ed. What say? Can't you hear me? I was talking about airplanes skywriting.
Doing all kinds of tricks? Right over town?
Sure, I can see it from a front porch. By Grammy, I knew that'd make all them eavesdroppers hang up and run outside.
Ollie, you ain't changed a bit.
That's pretty slick of you getting them off the line so we can hear better.
Dial telephone? Yes, I did hear something about it down at the grocery store this morning. Yeah, everybody thought it was a good idea.
Oh, did they? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. No, I ain't gonna get it in. No, I was just wondering why they wanted to change something that still works all right. No, Oh, see here, I ain't no more old-fashioned than you are.
Grandpa'll get used to it, Jeannie. He said the same thing when I got my new washer, remember?
Yes, and he wouldn't go near it for weeks. He even likes to work it now.
Charlie, Jean says we're going to have dial phones put in. Grandpa read about it in the paper.
Yes, I heard about it today. Ought to be a fine improvement for us here in town. It'll mean pretty fast, up-to-date service.
You can pour the water, honey.
Okay, Mom. Gramp got all worked up. He's trying to get Hockstetter now.
Yes, I heard him hollering out there in the hall. But he'll be all right when he hears there might be some new construction going on. He'll go down there every day if he can and tell them how to do it. From what I hear, they're planning to hold some meetings around town later on.
What kind of meetings, Charlie?
Oh, to tell folks all about the new system, how it works and everything. John Cook will be the main speaker.
John Cook?
You know, he's the telephone manager.
Oh, yes, sure.
The first talk will be at the next parent-teachers meeting.
I guess we'll have to figure on going then.
Can I go too, Daddy?
You won't have to, Jeannie. He's going to talk at a meeting in the school assembly for you kids. You'll hear about it then.
Oh.
Hey, what's going on here? You can't eat talk. Where's that supper I was going to be late for?
Oh, you're just in time.
We're talking about going to a meeting, Dad. The telephone company wants to tell us all about this new dial service.
Meeting tonight? Can't go. We're going to watch Ed Hockstetter paint his wife's pantry.
Well, Dad, you'll be able to go to this meeting all right. It won't be for some time yet.
Friends, it won't be long now until your new dial telephones are ready to serve you. And I know you're as glad as I am that we're going to have an as up-to-date telephone system here as any in America. Now, most of you are acquainted with what a dial telephone looks like because nearly all of the installations have been made in your homes. But lots of other work has been going on around town too, as you've probably noticed. The wiring that runs to your homes has been checked. New pole lines have been put up. And new cable has been pulled into place. Things were happening behind the scenes too. In fact, the planning and the work on your new dial system has been underway for some time. A good many months ago, our engineers drew up the plans for the new equipment. It was built to these specifications in Western Electric's factories. Telephone equipment is pretty much standard throughout the whole Bell system. But each community has its own telephone needs. And our equipment must be built to fit those needs. Not only for today, but for years to come. Sometimes new buildings are required to hold the dial equipment. In these cases, we try to have them harmonize with the surroundings. It took a lot of time for our men to install equipment for dial service, and it took many days to put the new telephones in your homes. A little later on, I'm going to ask Miss White of our traffic department to demonstrate how to make a call with your dial telephone. But right now, I want you to listen to a man who has been working on the job of getting dial service ready for use. I'd like Mr. Johnson of our plant department to get up and tell you what happens during the actual cutover from the old system to the new one.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, of course you know from what you've already heard that putting things in good shape for the new system has been quite a job. The main thing now is we're heading toward the time when we make the actual change to the new service, what we call the cutover. So that there'll be no break in the community service, this must all be done in a few seconds. You can see these are mighty important seconds and mighty exciting seconds. When the signal is given, the little fuses are pulled out of the lines that were part of the switchboard service, and the old service dies. And at almost the same instant, few seconds at most, we close the connections in the dial apparatus, and it is ready to handle your calls. From then on, you will have a dependable electrical operator at your service, ready at an instant's notice, one that will be there 24 hours a day to handle your calls. Instead of hearing the familiar "number, please," you will hear the dial tone, which says the same thing electrically.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. And now Miss White will give you some pointers on using your new dial telephone. Miss White.
Mr. Johnson has just told you that your calls are handled in the dial system by an electrical operator. Of course, you've got to understand that the dial system doesn't do away with the need for human operators. Although more than half the telephones in America are dial, we have more operators than we ever had before. Better service means that people make more calls, and more calls mean more operators. Dial or no dial, you'll still be placing out-of-town calls. You'll still want us to find unlisted numbers for you. Or you may need help in an emergency. So don't worry, you'll find operators just as before when you need them. Now, I'm sure that most of you have used a dial telephone before, but perhaps you'd like to know why it works the way it does. We'll use this equipment over here to demonstrate. As you can see, this big dial looks like the one you have on your new telephone. Suppose you've got a number you want to call. What's the first thing you do? Take up your receiver and listen for the dial tone. Here's how it sounds. The dial tone is the equipment's way of telling you that it's ready to put through your call. As Mr. Johnson pointed out, it's the same as an operator saying, "Number, please." If you don't hear the dial tone within a reasonable time, hang up, wait a few seconds, and then try again. As soon as you hear the dial tone, you're ready to dial the number you want. But before we do that, let's examine the dial itself for a moment. When you operate the dial, bringing it around to the finger stop and then release it, an electrical code message is sent to the automatic equipment in the central office. You'll get some idea of what happens over at the central office if you'll think of these columns of lights as representing the central office dial equipment. For example, if the first number you dial is 5, a 5 signal is received at the central office. Here, the signal appears in the first column of lights as 5. Say the next number you dial is 6. The signal appears in the next column of lights as 6. Suppose we say the third number dialed is also a 6. It will appear in the third column of lights, and so on. Of course, the dial equipment receiving these signals in the central office is quite different from anything we have here on the platform. But in any sequence of numbers, the number you dial will cause a particular signal to be sent to the dial equipment in the central office. Now let's start at the very beginning and see what you do when you want to call someone. First, you get the number from your new directory. Let's say the number is 4567. Then pick up your telephone and listen for the dial tone. As soon as you hear the dial tone, you can start to dial the number. Here's the dial tone. 4. Notice the first column has received the signal 4, and so on with 5, 6, and 7. Always pull the dial all the way around to the finger stop and lift your finger after each number so that the dial swings back of its own accord. This is important because the electrical signals are sent to the dial equipment only as the dial swings back. Any interference with the return of the dial may result in you getting a wrong number. Soon after the last number is dialed, you will usually hear this tone. That's the ringing signal. It tells you that the telephone at the number you called is ringing. The party at this number will hear a clear, evenly spaced ring that sounds like this. The ring will continue until the telephone is answered, or if no one answers, until you hang up. When you've dialed a number and that line is busy, you'll hear a signal like this. If you hear the busy signal, simply hang up and wait a few minutes for the people who are talking on the line to finish, then try again. When you raise your telephone and listen for the dial tone, but discover someone else talking on the line, hang up and try again after you've waited a reasonable time. Also, if you lift your receiver and hear the clicks that indicate someone else on the line is dialing, hang up as carefully as possible. But no matter how often or when you call, always be sure to listen for the dial tone before you start to dial. For instance, if you should dial 8, before hearing the dial tone, the equipment may register only, well, some other number. Five. The reason is really very simple. You started to dial before the equipment was ready, and so it didn't receive all the electrical signals you tried to send it. The main things to remember are, first, look up the number in your new directory. Second, raise your telephone and listen for the dial tone. Third, dial each number carefully, making sure you bring the dial all the way around to the finger stop each time. Then let go. Don't try to hurry it back. I'm sure if you follow these simple rules, you'll find your new dial telephones easy to operate, convenient to use, and quick in service. Thanks.
right noise. Now, let me see. 4, 1, 9, 2. Hello? This Ed Hockstetter? By Gertie's Ed, this thing isn't hard to work. No, sir. Got my call through first time I tried. Real nice and clear, too, isn't it? God blame me if I don't think this darn thing is going to work out pretty good at that. Yeah.
So I identify with Gramps. You know, why do we need this newfangled thing? Why do we need fact checkers on social media? Well, that just seems... No, the opposite. We need fact checkers on social media. I just don't see why we don't have them. Anyways, thanks for watching. I have a client showing up, and so we'll see you tomorrow. Hopefully we learned something today. But thanks for your support. Thanks for your thumbs up. Jeremy, thank you for the donation. We'll see you soon.